In this lesson, we're going to plan out our migration and set up a tag plan. All and more coming up. Hey there, and welcome back to another video of measureschool.com, teaching you the data-driven way of digital marketing. My name is Julian, and in this third lesson of our GTM for Beginners series, we are gonna go into the planning stages. This is very important. Before we implement anything with Google Tag Manager, we need to be aware of what we actually want to implement. And in this lesson, we're gonna plan out a migration of Google Tag Manager. So if we have any kind of data already gathering on our systems, we wanna make sure that we document this in a tag plan, and then we'll be ready to actually put it into place in Google Tag Manager. That will ensure data quality, which is very important, and give us some documentation. So if we ever need to explain or try to figure out what we have implemented in the first place, we can refer back to a document. And that's where I came up with the tag plan, which I'm also gonna link up in the description down below. So if you wanna check that out, you can download it and make a copy for yourself. But now we got lots to cover, so let's dive in. Welcome back to Google Tag Manager. Now, Google Tag Manager is a great tool to organize your tools and deploy new tags, but in most of the cases, you're not actually working with a brand new website, but there are already tags installed on your website, and we would need to migrate them over to Google Tag Manager. The first step that we want to take in this lesson is planning out our implementation. So we would look at our website, what tracking do we have installed, what tracking would we need to transport over to Google Tag Manager, and generally document our journey so we'll be able to decipher our tracking later on and where it was implemented. At this stage, I would encourage you to talk to anybody who is involved in the website that might have something to do with the tracking. It might be marketing people or developers who have installed the tracking codes on your website. There might be already some kind of documentation of what was installed or a sense of what tools are actually used that gather data on your website. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the case that nothing was documented. Nobody really knows what tracking codes are installed. And if the website is a little bit older, might be that many codes are installed that are not used anymore. Even though Google Tag Manager later on gives us an interface where we can see all the different codes, we may want to document them beforehand so we don't run into the same problem in a few years when we are trying to figure out our tracking again. So I encourage you to audit your tracking beforehand. What do you have installed? And then plan out your future implementation. And that's why it's very handy to come up with a tag plan. Now, this is something that you can do outside of Google Tag Manager. I do it here in a spreadsheet, but any format would really work. And this is a little template that I came up with where we will document our progress and what we want to implement with Google Tag Manager later on. This document will be super helpful if anybody from your team asks you what tracking codes do we have installed, or future employees or freelancers that join to help you out with the website and ask you what the tracking configuration looks like. So here we can enter all the tools. We will look at the different pages that we have that are relevant for tracking and any kind of event, interaction tracking, and audience tracking. Now we will do this on the example of our demo shop. Depending on your website, how big it is, how many people are involved, and the kind of tools you are running, this can be much more complex. I want to keep it simple here and just go through an example. So let's say I have talked to my team. They told me they're using Google Analytics, Google Ads, and also the Facebook Pixel. So I have a little bit of a sense of what might be installed on the website. And the first hint, if something is installed, is actually looking into the page source. So we right click here on View Page Source, and this will give us our HTML that was downloaded. We have obviously our Google Tag Manager installed. And if we scroll down, we can look at all the different codes that might be installed here, especially in the head section of the website. And we see a global site tag here from Google Analytics. And we also see the Facebook Pixel. So that gives us a hint of what is installed on this page. If you don't want to really look through code, you can also install browser extensions that will help you with this. One of these extensions is the Tag Assistant by Google. I have it installed here, and it will show us which tags are from Google, the marketing vendor, installed. We have Google Tag Manager, obviously. Additionally, we have the global site tag, which deploys our Google Ads remarketing and Google Analytics tag. Facebook has a similar extension called the Facebook Pixel Helper, where we can see, okay, this page, the page view is tracked with the Facebook Pixel. But if you have different other marketing vendors, there might be extensions out there that are specialized to tell you what data is sent over from those tools. If you want to have a more general one, you can get the WASP Inspector, which will add functionality to your Chrome developer tools, which you can find under More Tools. Then here under Developer Tools, we'll see a new tab down here, which is WASP. And if we reload this page, it will give us a lot of information of what marketing tags were found and where they're actually coming from. Very helpful tool that I've been using for a while, and I definitely recommend it. With that information, we can go ahead and fill out our sheet here. So we have as a tool Google Analytics and Google Ads. And we also are running the Facebook Pixel. Now these are all active and gathering data. You could go obviously into your tools and check whether they are still used. And give a little bit of a description. For Google Analytics, we are doing basic page view tracking. For Google Ads, we are actually doing remarketing with this tag. And the Facebook Pixel is also remarketing and conversion tracking. Then you can put in some notes. I would encourage you, if you want to be fast later and know where data is going, to actually look up certain configurations. In our case, for Google Analytics, we can log into our Google Analytics account and go to the right account and look into the configurations, how it's actually configured. So I'm going to go to my demo account here. Look under the admin section and then actually look up the tracking code that would need to be installed. And right here we have our tracking ID. This is the piece of information that I need later on for my tag deployment. I'm going to enter this into the notes. We also had our Google Ads. Let's go over to our Google Ads account. Here under Tools, we can go to Conversions. And here we find our purchase tracking code that is installed. Let's click through and look at the tag setup. And here we already find Google Tag Manager, and we would need to have the conversion ID. So let's input that here. And we also have the Facebook Pixel. Now, again, we can go into our tool, Facebook, and look this up right here. It depends on your implementation, what data you would need. In our case, it's this ID here, which we also saw in our plugin. So right here's the Facebook Pixel ID. This is something I would need later on. Now again, you can see how this might be useful if you have multiple codes running and you want to figure out where to which account is what data sent. And overall, it just helps us with the documentation for later reference. So that is it. This is a pretty small implementation of these three tools. We don't have anything else installed on our little demo store here. So let's think about of what additional information we want to track later on with Google Tag Manager. And this is important because we want to purposefully build in tracking onto our website. We don't want to take the approach of just mindlessly deploying any kind of tracking, see what data we can get, and then forget about it, but rather purposefully build in the tracking, gather data that we want, and get insights from that. Otherwise, we face the problem of data overwhelm, where we have a lot of data available but don't really know what to do with it. So let's take a look at this website here and write down some pages that might be important for us. On a shop, we obviously have the home page, the product pages, we have maybe the interaction of the add to cart click, we have the cart, and if you go further, we have actually the most important part of an online store, which is the thank you page or the order confirmed page, which is right here. This is a page that will become very important for our tracking later on, because we want to use this as a conversion goal in our later tracking deployment. So I want to remember this page, and I'm going to do this by copying the URL here. Let's go over to pages, and the path that we had, this is the exact path. We have a little bit of a description. And any kind of notes that we want to put in. This is our thank you page. Again, you could do this much more extensive here and put in different other page templates or important pages that are relevant to your tracking later on. Now let's talk about some interactions, some events that we might want to track later on. And this is really the power of Google Tag Manager. We'll be able to track any kind of clicks or form submits. On an online store, I would say an important interaction are button clicks here on the Add to Cart button, for example. So let's put that into our tag plan. So we have that available later on and know what to do when we implement. Now there is another idea here, the audiences. If you wanted to build custom audiences, for example with the Facebook pixel, that's also something you could define here in order to build that into your tracking. With this very limited and small tracking plan, we want to go into the next video and start migrating over our existing tracking into Google Tag Manager and also build in our new tracking and send that on to our tools with the help of Google Tag Manager. All right, so there you have it. This is how you can plan out your migration, audit a little bit of your account, and then put that into a tag plan. Now, I know the examples that I've given were a little bit simplified. Probably if you have a bigger company, you probably have more pages that you need to go through and put this all in. But trust me, if you put it all into a tag plan beforehand, you don't forget anything and you don't wake up with faulty data because something was forgotten or not re-implemented into Google Tag Manager. With that in place, we are now ready to take this to the next step and actually implement tags with Google Tag Manager and get into the weeds of it. So join me for the next lesson. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing to this channel right over there because the new lesson will obviously come out next week. Now, my name is Julian. See you in the next lesson.